Hello, my name is Dennis Ho. Let's come to the first part of our series of talk. In these short sections, what I'm going to introduce to you is to look at the issues about the nature of geographical knowledge. I guess that will be important for us to take a look at the structure of geographical knowledge before we can proceed to identify the values of fieldwork. So as far as the values of fieldwork is concerned, or the broader geographical context of geographical education is concerned, we need to look at 4 levels of knowledge. These 4 levels of knowledge would inform how we understand the values of fieldwork, and as well as how should we structure the way in which fieldwork is to be carried out. My target is not just for secondary school students, but it also be applicable to researchers who like to make use of fieldworks as their research methodology in trying to develop their fieldwork. So there are essentially 4 aspects that we pay attention to. Number 1, which is the conceptual level. If you take a look at here, this is talking about the conceptual level. At the conceptual level, as a lot of researchers may know, having a very strong conceptual understanding towards geographical phenomena is very important. For example, if you look at the issues about urbanizations, definitely you should have a clear grasp of the idea of what urbanization means. For example, if you are going to look at the issues about border conflicts or border area, then you should be able to identify what borders means in geographical context. You may be talking about the issues about physical geography that would also involve of concept. For example, you talk about ecosystem. You also talk about sustainability. These are important geographical concepts that inform our geographical understanding of the contemporary world. So in this regard, when we think about the value of fieldwork, we need to think about what kind of concepts that we are talking about. This is not just talking about the fieldwork as such, but we are talking about the research context as a whole. So we need to identify what are the concepts that is important as far as the research is concerned. So what we here try to argue that the concepts are what we call building blocks of geographical knowledge. As we have just mentioned, it may be talking about sustainability. It may be talking about issues related to economic geography, concepts related to economic geography. For example, it talks about Fordism. This is an organic concept that you can think about. So there are a variety of concepts that inform our geographical knowledge. Without understanding these geographical concepts, we may not be able to explain different geographical processes, outcomes, as well as causes. So it is important for us to think about the conceptual dimensions of your geographical inquiry. So for school students, so they may having a clear definitional understanding of the concept will be essential. So for example, the instructors may provide them with a dictionary entries that may be related to certain concepts. In that way, they may be able to develop a better understanding towards the concepts. For undergraduates, so again, the instructors may provide certain kind of like key dictionary entries that they may find useful in understanding certain concepts. But for postgraduate students, what they also need to pay attention to is how do different conceptual understandings complement and contradict with one another. In that regard, when you think about the idea, when you think about how do you develop a better conceptual understanding, then you need to engage in a thorough literature review. So that's why we pay very much attention to the issues about conceptual understanding. In the context of fieldwork, having a clear conceptual understanding is very essential because it tries to inform your overall design of a fieldwork. Because without a definitional understanding of certain concepts, you may not be able to identify the parameter of your research. So in that regard, you need to think about how do you develop the conceptual basis for your fieldwork. This is the first level that you need to pay attention to. So we argue that the definitional understanding as well as conceptual understanding will be essential for developing this very basis upon which subsequent development of learning can take place. Of course, having the concepts alone would not be enough to carry out a geographical inquiry. We also need the empirical basis. The second level that we need to pay attention to is the empirical level. Empirical level, what we argue is that researchers and students need to develop and possess a good degree of empirical knowledge to identify the relevance of spatial concepts and geographical theories in the real world. You need to develop and possess a certain kind of good degree of empirical understanding. By this, what I try to talk about is the fact that you need to try to match the kind of the reality with the concepts or theories that you have identified. As far as the theories is concerned, we argue that theories are built upon different concepts. So in that regard, if we take a step back, we need to pay attention to how these concepts, they develop together to form different theories. And in order to verify the theory, or sometimes in order to contest the theory, then you need to pay attention to how different empirical material can fit into those concepts as well as theories. So sometimes you may be able to make very good use of a concept because the concept allows you to illuminate certain dimensions of certain geographical phenomena. Sometimes, however, some empirical evidence may contradict with certain theories. That does not mean that the theories alone have a problem, but in a way, it's subject to some kind of debates about the relationship between the theories and the realities. In a way, what makes geographical inquiry so exciting is that sometimes the reality may not necessarily talk to the theory. Sometimes it challenges. So in a way, we need to have a very good grasp of the empirical understanding towards different geographical phenomena. So in the context of fieldwork, that is very important because fieldwork is the way in which you try to get empirical material to try to test the theories, try to resolve the puzzles that you have. We will be talking about these research puzzles in the next talk, short video. But what we try to argue for is that the empirical material that you try to get, that you try to obtain, in a way, will try to allow you to see whether there's a limitations or whether there's a certain strength related to certain theories, or whether it can provide certain clues to answer some puzzles that you may not be able to identify, that you find that have not been resolved properly. So in a way, empirical materials do matter, and fieldwork would be one of the essential ways in which you try to collect the data to try to see whether the material is, whether the theories, concepts, or puzzles can be resolved. So this will be the empirical level. The third one is methodological and technical knowledge. This is also related to the empirical dimensions because you need certain strategies to collect data. You need certain kind of methods to collect data. Without using, we rely a lot on using accurate methodologies to collect materials in order to inform our research. So this is not just for example, for those who are doing undergraduate or postgraduate. You may find the material very the research methodology play a very important one. That does not mean, however, that secondary school students should ignore it. But basically, you need to master, and the instructors need to teach the essential methodological and technical materials to students so that they could carry out data collections on their own. This is important because sometimes students would need to go to different sites to collect different informations. So equip them with a wide range of methodological competence would be important, because without which you may not be able to see how data are to be collected. That would be the important point that you need to pay attention to. The methodological and technical dimensions essential would be computational, statistical, cartographical knowledge. So that may involve the use of, for example, sometimes you may involve the use of GIS. Sometimes you may need some statistical tools to carry out your analysis. Sometimes you may need some cartographical material for doing data collections and analysis. So this would be the third level. And final one is the experiential. This is somehow a very overlooked aspect in the existing literatures as far as the geographical knowledge is concerned. We argue that when we are trying to look at the how researchers conduct research, we need to position researchers, students, instructors themselves within different positionalities. This is what critical theories call positionalities. In a way, when we think about the issues about positionalities, we try to argue that researchers, students, or anyone who are involved in field work, they should develop their kind of like sense of place. With this sense of place is very important as far as this geographical inquiry is concerned, because we are talking about space and place. Without those ideas, you may not be able to identify what the kind of like boundaries of your field or what is the limits of your field. So in a way, you need to have a sense of place. You need to develop your unique, or what we call situated and embodied understanding towards the reality. In many respects, that highlights the value of fieldwork, because without fieldwork, you may not be able to have a sense about the field that you're working in. What kind of like political, cultural, economic geographies, social geographies that particular place do manifest. So fieldwork is a very important one because it provides a very unique experience that could allow you to highlight how experiential knowledge can be garnered. So these are the four levels of knowledge that we see when, as far as the geographical inquiry is concerned. One talk to one another. Concepts inform empirical inform methodological inform experientials. They are closely tied to one another. So it is important to bear in mind that when we are trying to design a research fieldwork, you keep these four elements in mind. Without any of these elements, your fieldwork is not complete. In the next sections, we will be talking about issues with the underlying philosophies related to fieldwork.